attract talent. So the positioning is a very composite word. It might be a loose word. It is an unscientific word. But nevertheless, it is an important thought process that must capture the imagination of all the public enterprises before they are able to recall budgeting. We are very comfortable with budgeting. Budgeting involves apportioning of resources to a strategy that has already been decided. But since the 1950s, when it became a very powerful tool, budgeting, people driving the budget. The budgets have been driving the strategies. People have been very comfortable looking at the budgets and saying that performance review plus, if it is a plus, it is because of my effort. If it is minus, because of X and Y's inefficiency and interference. This has been the standard kind of an analysis, quarterly, half-yearly, year. End of it, if it is a credit, it is to you. If it is a debit, you have to find a scapegoat. This game has gone on for too long, has proved to be a failure. Budget is very closely linked to strategy as a discipline, as a financial discipline, but it does not surmount and occupy the space of strategy. Strategy is also not planning. If planning is only what is to be done, it normally involves forecasting depending on the data that you have of the past. Strategy is about rethinking about all your resources, not projecting from the past and not planning incrementally for the future. Plus 5% market share, plus 5% in terms of raw material cost, plus 5% in terms of pricing of the products. No. The products might be different. You might be a company who have got a very strong brand, but your weakness is the Chinese have started making the same product as an intermediary product at 1/3 of your cost. So if you make the same product at 1/3 of the cost, can you ever be competitive? You cannot. So obviously you may have to think and say, let me import branded one, let me import the raw one and use my branding skills as a core component to be able to market and generate more markets. So it is not planning. It is not path dependent. Means it is not dependent on what the kind of route that you have followed last 10 years. It might be taking an entirely new route. It might be rediscovering the products. So it is not just about prolonging by another 1 year. What it does, what its true resources are, tangible and intangible. It is rearranging the competencies. You have hidden competencies. And getting a better fit between the opportunities outside and what you can do. It could be rearranging your physical assets. It could be branding through the levers that you have in the private sector and rediscovering a third market. Do whatever. And in the process, as I have seen in this turnaround of the Steel Authority of India and also a couple of other companies I have been closely involved in outside the country, it means the company is prepared to, how does it come? It may come from within yourselves, or it may come from inviting people from outside to share and compare. Just now, I think Mr. John Mathayan was asking me, and I was very pleased to listen to their experiences of declining markets and how they configure themselves. You learn by getting outside in a neighboring country. In Bangladesh, there is an institute called Bangladesh Enterprise Institute. Padma knows them, and shortly we may be assisting them. They have been asking for some sharing of experiences on SOE reforms and so on. Very interesting. They said that some of the banks and other SOEs wanted sharing of information. The top management and board came together because the chairman was not able to convince the rest of the guys about some changes. So let us hear somebody else. Please come and share. Tell us what is happening there. Why is it happening? Why is there rationale between this? How do you manage the resistance to this competition from the private sector? How do you cope with the competition from the Chinese markets? Because we have always been living the same way as we have, and we have not seen anything else in the world, it is always good to get fresh air. I keep saying, some years ago, not now companies have become much better. Some years ago I used to give an analogy, because I also worked in the industry in between my academic stint, and I found that it was beautiful working for the company, especially a private sector company, profit-making company. You sit in your car, you have a driver, you have all the perks, takes you there, gets you back in the evening. And, the years pass by, and I look back and say that it is like in my village I used to see. You have the well, and you have this cattle. In the morning, the farm servants used to take the cattle to draw the water from the well for putting water to the irrigating the farm. So what do they do in the morning? I was recollecting. The moment the farmer fellow gets up and takes the yoke, the cattle are ready to come and put their necks at the yoke to be bound. And once they are bound, he does not even need to lead them. They go on their own to the well. And near the well, I remember very distinctively as a kid, seeing that the cattle go back and come forth. Go back and come forth. So every time they go back, there is this huge chute that goes into the water, and as the compound, the chute comes and then puts the water into the irrigation canal. Now the surprising thing is, over a period of time, these cattle have been going back and coming forward, going back, coming forward, just as I was going to my office and coming back home, going to office, coming back home. And there are deep furrows near the well, nearly 1 foot height. So in between the 1 foot height and deep furrows. These furrows have been caused by this cattle going back and forth for the last so many years. Number of companies, each one of the factories, and talk to these people. And I remember, in those days, India and Sri Lanka were not on the best of the terms. So in one factory, a beautiful factory, and this particular group also has huge number of hotels, plantation management company. So one person became so emotional and came up and said, "We will try and do our best. I don't know about my survival, but I feel insulted. I feel insulted that an Indian must be coming and telling me what to do." I said, that's the spirit. You don't need an Indian to come and tell you as to what you must be doing. If you are able to find the solutions within. That is the kind of dismantling that will happen. Prepare people to talk to each other. The conference that I was there happened to coincide with the award giving ceremony of the same company. It was rated number 19, was rated now in 3 years flat as among the top 5, and was also the way of becoming number 1. They were the first amongst those companies which came out with their own brand and became very, very competitive. Nobody did anything. All within. The people came with ideas, this kind of a situation. They discovered white spaces, as they call, and they started looking at loose spots. They established new numbers and creating new energies among people. You cannot reposition a company on the basis of consultants' reports. You can't reposition a company on the basis of your office orders or GOs or memorandums. When you as senior executives or chief executives are able to fire up that bellies and say that we have to do this and we want to achieve this. Nothing like an achievement that drives the people. Prices are governmental salaries. It is the achievement that matters. The bellies that are fired up. And creating new indicators. This is something that you have to research. Each company has to research and come out which are the critical success factors and which are the indicators that we are going to become competitive vis-a-vis. Looking at strategy as not as a one-off affair, but as a continuous, perpetual cycle. The budget psychology has left us with the thinking that the moment we have done the budget, job is over. Strategic repositioning has no beginning and no end. Stop the loss, create a new environment, etc. It's continuous running. And people enjoy that kind of running. I've seen companies which are trying to reposition. You will find that the motivation, the aspiration that creates in the organization is something unimaginable, because they start looking at the success as the greatest reward, and they want to do that again and again. Earlier on, saying that anybody can think of a strategy, but eventually the quality of implementation is the one that distinguishes the winners from the losers. In doing everything under the book in manufacturing automobiles, who were the leaders in automobile knowledge, technology and usage? Japan, Germany, UK? No, it was the US. Ford, accumulated knowledge, high on the learning curve, high on the curve of marketing. Name it, every competence in the automobile world. From Japan, energy efficient one, they started taking away competition. Then they discovered the American companies were very good, but at the same time highly bureaucratic. Things all the time, but still the boss is always right. So the boss is always right, and he says that this is the strategy everyone follows by the book in their own way. Bureaucratic. Implementation was so impeccable, and the change of strategy when it is required was so impeccable that change your strategy, so there is loss in the same process of pursuing the old strategy rather than doing something different. So there is no stop loss there. So strategy is now basically, like this is my saying, that or you have to see that there's information flow, there's confusion, but vision is right. You have to get the marriage done very, very successfully. Home took a very, very long time to construct. And that's why many of the pharaohs' tombs are unfinished. You know that? You know why? The only reason is, if the pharaoh's tomb is completed, the people who are in charge of constructing the pharaohs are in a few more weeks, they might still go ahead and do it. Because the pharaoh never wanted these people to know where the treasury is. Get the point? So, pharaoh's tombs are stoic, unfinished, slow in making. That's how machine bureaucracies work. And if you want a machine bureaucracy, you have to continue with it. That will not give you the competitiveness.
Honorable Minister of Industries and Commerce, Government of Kerala, as mentioned in the inaugural session, Minister has taken time from His Excellency the Vice President to be with us for 10 minutes. So he is here only for 10 minutes because the Vice President will be coming back to the city. So in the morning we started exactly at 9 a.m. and we had the inaugural session. Mr. Balushan gave the keynote address, and I briefly introduced the subject. Now, management guru and international figure in management. He was explaining the strategic intervention framework and envisioning a competitive future for public enterprises. He is halfway through his presentation, and he will continue after Minister gives his thought on our public sector's future role, especially in the competitive world and in the liberalization and globalization scenario, what our Kerala public sectors are expected to do. As briefly mentioned by me, the driving force, Dr. Reddy, for spearheading this session. Also, we have Mr. Suresh Mohan, renowned chartered accountant. He will be giving the next session. Then we will have a case study presentation by 4 of our public sector managers, managing directors in the afternoon, and then an open session for concluding the workshop with certain suggestions for action plan. Now, we are extremely happy that the Minister has, in his very eventful today's program, he has taken time to come and address all of you. Now, I welcome Honorable Minister and say a few words. Thanks.
Dr. Reddy, Sri Rirising, Government Padmanga, പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട നമ്മുടെ പൊതുമേഖലാ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളിലെ സിഇഒമാർ, എക്സിക്യൂട്ടീവ്സ് ഇവരെല്ലാം ഇന്നത്തെ ഈ മത്സരാധിഷ്ഠിത കമ്പോളത്തിൽ പിടിച്ചു നിൽക്കാൻ, അതിജീവിക്കാൻ കഴിവ് ആർജിക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയാണ് ഇത്തരമൊരു ട്രെയിനിങ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സെമിനാർ മാതൃകയിൽ ഒരു ചർച്ച നടത്തണമെന്ന് ഞങ്ങൾ ആലോചിച്ചത്. ദേശീയ നിലവാരത്തിലുള്ള മാനേജ്മെന്റ് വിദഗ്ധന്മാരെ പങ്കെടുപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ചുരുങ്ങിയത് 3 മാസത്തിലൊരിക്കൽ തുടർച്ചയായി ഇത്തരം മീറ്റിങ്ങുകൾ വേണമെന്നാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ ആലോചിച്ചത്. ഇന്ത്യയിലെ പ്രമുഖ കോർപ്പറേറ്റ് മാനേജ്മെന്റുകളിൽ നിന്ന് തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കപ്പെടുന്നവരുടെ എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് നിങ്ങളുമായി പങ്കുവയ്ക്കാനും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ചോദ്യങ്ങൾ ചോദിക്കാനും സംവാദം നടത്താനും എല്ലാം അവസരം ലഭിക്കത്തക്ക നിലയിൽ ഈ പരിപാടി സംഘടിപ്പിക്കണമെന്നാണ് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. നമ്മുടെ ഓരോ കമ്പനിയിലെയും സിഇഒമാരും മാനേജ്മെന്റ് എക്സിക്യൂട്ടീവ്സും ഓരോ സ്ഥാപനത്തെ സ്വന്തം കാര്യം നിലനിർത്താൻ കഴിവാർജിക്കുന്നു. ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ സ്ഥാപനം എന്ന നിലയിൽ ഇത് സർക്കാർ ഏതെങ്കിലും വിധത്തിൽ ഫണ്ട് നൽകും, നഷ്ടമായാലും ലാഭമായാലും ഞങ്ങൾക്കൊന്നുമില്ല എന്ന മട്ടിൽ ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ ഒരു ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് നടത്തിക്കൊണ്ടു പോകുന്ന രീതിയിൽ കമ്പനികൾ നടത്തിക്കൊണ്ടു പോകും. കമ്പനി പബ്ലിക് സെക്ടർ ആണെങ്കിലും പ്രൈവറ്റ് സെക്ടർ ആണെങ്കിലും കമ്പനി നിയമം അനുസരിച്ചു, കമ്പോള നിയമം അനുസരിച്ചു നടത്താനുള്ള എല്ലാ ഒരുക്കങ്ങളും മാനേജ്മെന്റുകളുടെ ഭാഗത്തുനിന്നാണ്. അതിനുള്ള കപ്പാസിറ്റി, അതിനുള്ളൊരു പ്രാപ്തി നമ്മുടെ മാനേജ്മെന്റ് കൈവരിക്കും. നാനാവിധത്തിലുള്ള പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ, സാമ്പത്തിക പ്രയാസങ്ങളുണ്ട്, മാർക്കറ്റിംഗ് പ്രശ്നങ്ങളുണ്ട്, ടെക്നോളജിയുടെ പ്രശ്നമുണ്ട്. ഇങ്ങനെയെല്ലാം നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം. ഒരു സുപ്രഭാതത്തിൽ ഇതെല്ലാം മാറ്റി വളരെ ഐശ്വര്യത്തിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കാൻ കഴിയുമെന്ന വ്യാമോഹമൊന്നുമില്ല. എത്രയോ വർഷങ്ങളായി ടെക്നോളജി അപ്ഗ്രേഡ് ചെയ്യാത്ത പ്രശ്നം, പുതിയ മൂലധനം ഇറക്കാൻ കഴിയാത്ത സർക്കാരിൻ്റെ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എല്ലാ സ്ഥാപനത്തിലും ഒരു ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ മുഴുവൻ പിന്തുണ. പിന്നെ ആ സ്ഥാപനത്തിലെ പരിചയസമ്പന്നരായ തൊഴിലാളികളും ജീവനക്കാരും. ഇത് സ്ഥാപിച്ച കാലത്ത് സ്ഥാപിക്കപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുള്ള വിപുലമായ ഇൻഫ്രാസ്ട്രക്ചർ, ഇത്രയും അനുകൂല ഘടകങ്ങളെ ഉപയോഗപ്പെടുത്തി എന്ത് മിറാക്കിൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കാൻ പറ്റുമെന്ന് ഓരോരുത്തരും ആലോചിച്ച് അതിനുള്ള സ്ട്രാറ്റജി രൂപീകരിക്കണം. അതിനാണ് വളരെ ആലോചിച്ചും പരിശോധിച്ചും ഈ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളിലെല്ലാം പ്രൊഫഷണൽ സിഇഒമാരെ നിശ്ചയിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. സിഇഒമാരുടെ താഴെ എക്സിക്യൂട്ടീവ്സായി മാനേജ്മെന്റ് സൈഡിൽ പ്രവർത്തിക്കാൻ അനുയോജ്യരായ ആളുകൾ ആവശ്യത്തിനില്ലെങ്കിൽ അക്കാര്യം ഗവൺമെന്റുമായി കൂടിയാലോചിച്ച് അടിയന്തരമായി സബോർഡിനേറ്റ്സിനെ കണ്ടെത്തണം. മാനേജ്മെന്റ് തലത്തിലുള്ള ഈ പരിശീലന പരിപാടികൾക്ക് ശേഷം മുഴുവൻ തൊഴിലാളികളെയും നമുക്ക് ഈ പരിശീലനത്തിന്റെ ഭാഗമാക്കി മാറ്റാനുള്ള സ്കീമാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഇതിൻ്റെയൊക്കെ ഫെസിലിറ്റി നമുക്ക് ഉപയോഗിക്കാം. ഇതിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഡ്രൈവിംഗ് ഫോഴ്സായി റിയാബ് പ്രവർത്തിക്കണമെന്നാണ് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പോൾ എല്ലാ കമ്പനികളുടെയും മാസമുള്ള റിവ്യൂ റിയാബിന്റെ നേതൃത്വത്തിൽ നടത്തി വരുന്നത് അത് പബ്ലിക് സെക്ടറിന് വലിയ ഗുണം ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ന്യൂനതകൾ കണ്ടെത്താനും ഭാവി പരിപാടികൾ ആസൂത്രണം ചെയ്യാനും അതിൻ്റെ മോണിറ്ററിങ്ങിനുമൊക്കെ ഈ നടപടികൾ വളരെ സഹായകരമായിരിക്കും.